I'm James Sykes, the CEO of Metal Energy. I want to continue our SourceRock lithium brine project story with you, and I hope you really enjoy what you actually get out of this because it's very compelling. I think we've got a huge potential for high concentration of lithium within brines. I'm going to bypass the forward-looking statements. You can read those on your own time. The first three graphs I'm going to show you are from a very well documented paper in which the authors looked at 48 sedimentary basins worldwide. And in the end, the results really speak for themselves. This first image, geological timescales on the bottom, that's representing over 500 million years, lithium concentrations on the left-hand side. You get a general trend that as you go throughout time, your lithium concentrations increase. We're really focused on the older rocks, Sibley Basin between 1.1 and 1.6 billion years ago. That's when the basin formed, deposition was done. So we're looking over here in these really old rocks. And if you notice the general trend, that blue line is the average concentration of lithium for these super old rocks, and they're well above the norm. They are higher than the vast majority of the other basins that were studied. So very compelling that the older rocks have potential for higher lithium concentrations within the brines. Same kind of idea, but now we're going to look at depth. And so depth is there on the bottom with increasing depth down towards the right, and then lithium concentrations on the left. There's a positive correlation, not linear, but still positive correlation that as you sample more brines at depth, you have generally higher average concentrations of lithium. Our basin is between 500 to 700 meters depth, so we're right in that good window of having higher lithium concentrations with depth. Big takeaway here, and this was really the summary of the paper, is that as you have more total dissolved solids going to the right, you have a higher concentration of lithium. Very straight linear trend. There's two different, the red dots are the one we are really concerned with for SourceRock because that's closed basin fluids, and you can tell that they've also got higher average concentrations of lithium. So that's four characteristics that really speak to SourceRock having high lithium concentrations to begin with, but there's more evidence to support that. First of all, if we're going to talk about total dissolved solids, and for finding lithium, then we have to understand the pathfinders, and that's really the alkali metals. So sodium, Na, potassium, K, those are table salt type of materials. Then we get our other alkaline earth metals, which behave very similar, especially calcium, magnesium. Magnesium performs very similar to lithium. And we've got other elements, so chlorine, bromine, things that create salts that are, all of these are dissolvable, quite dissolvable within water. So they fit very well with lithium. If you notice that lithium is also the first non-gas element on the periodic table of elements, so it's a very light element. In 1 metric ton of seawater, there's basically 3.5% of total dissolved solids. The bulk majority of that is comprised of sodium and chloride, so table salt, really. And then within the other top 8 elements, you've got magnesium, sulfur, calcium, potassium, bromine, and carbon. But lithium is also about the 14th most abundant element in seawater. So it's there in seawater, it's there in brines. If we look down in the salars in South America, there's a pretty strong correlation. Potassium concentration is typically about 8 to 10 times the lithium concentration in these areas. So if you find potassium, again, good pathfinder, find lithium. And that's because these elements love to be in water. That's where they're most stable, and they're actually not stable in these rock or hard rock forms. So this video is going to show you the actual elements themselves in metallic form and how they react with water. You could take the same experiment, you throw a chunk of iron into water, it's not going to react like these. We'll just skip forward. So all of these elements, lithium, sodium, potassium, all react in water in their metallic form. What does that tell you about these elements being incorporated in a mineral state? They're going to want to dissolve when they come in contact with water. All right, let's get out of this. So now that we're talking about total dissolved solids, TDS, within water, let's take a look at Lake Superior. Nice tongue twister on that one. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the world. Freshwater, okay, should be no salts in there. However, well, here we are, Lake Superior. We're in the northwest corner of it. There's Thunder Bay, Nipigon, and Lake Nipigon, just for people's reference. So we're in the northwest corner of Lake Superior, basically. You can find this online by Googling the mystery of the North Shore's salty water. The link is down below. And within there, one of the takeaways is the comment, "What's surprising is to find water with such chemistry coming out of a household spigot." This salty predicament is sporadic around the fringes of Lake Superior's western lobe. Drinkable water can come from a well 100 feet away from one that might have a chloride concentration greater than 40,000 parts per million. So greater than 4% of TDS. And if you remember from earlier, typical ocean water is 3.5%. So you've got saltier water up in this area to begin with. From another paper in the area, bedrock groundwater discharges have been identified in northern Ontario in an area encompassing Lake Nipigon, Sibley Peninsula, and St. Ignace Island. Detailed investigations were carried out at a Lake Nipigon site where saline seeps discharged containing at least 9,000 milligrams per liter of TDS from the granitic rocks. That is very saline brine. And the paper goes on. The origin of these waters has been attributed primarily to evaporite facies in local sedimentary rock strata of the Precambrian Sibley Formation. It's exactly where our SourceRock project is. It is staked over the Precambrian Sibley Formation, and we have evaporite facies rocks within there. The project was drilled previously. We're going to take a look at some of these drill holes here in the red. You probably can't identify everything on the cross section, but this area in red is where they logged halite and sylvite. Halite being table salt, sylvite being a potassium version, replacing the sodium. So it's saltier. Remember the experiment, the one that exploded off the first one? That was potassium. So they're seeing beds of this in the rock types, and here's a picture of them. Two takeaways, actually multiple takeaways. Number one, the rocks look dissolved. Just by looking at the core, they kind of look like they've been corroded. Something's been removed. However, we still do see salt beds within here, whether that's just pure table salt, sodium chloride, or potassium chloride. I don't know. I haven't analyzed the core myself, but the salt is still there, but it looks like some has been dissolved. If the fluids, so just like salt water at home, if you take salt and you pour it in a glass of water, it will dissolve. But you can keep pouring salt in, and at some point that water will not dissolve any more salt, because at that point it is called supersaturated. It has taken in as many different elements or as much concentration of elements that it possibly can. That becomes supersaturated. So it can't take any more. So when we see things that are dissolved here, it looks like the easy things got dissolved, and then the thicker things, such as the salt beds, would have been harder to remove them all. So those salt beds are still intact, but that would increase your brine. Like if that water still had room for more salt to be incorporated, it would have consumed all of these salt beds throughout 1 billion years. So we're pretty certain that the brines down there are supersaturated. And they didn't take any chemical analysis of the rocks. That's fine. We've got another slide to show that one, but took thin sections, and you can see the type of sandstone on your left that would have no salt in it. So not very good for porosity and brine. But if you look at the ones that do have salt within them, you can see the salt in the matrix. So the rock types look quite different. We know that there's still salt in the rock. So again, the fluid that is down there should be a supersaturated fluid right now. Let's look at hole 7, further down to the south end of the project. The lowermost sequence, again, where the last drill holes logs, halite and sylvite, there wasn't a presence of this in this area. Maybe they were too far west. So no visible salt. However, they did describe the rock types as being salty. And they took rock samples, okay, and they came back with less than 20 ppm in the rock samples. Right above it is another sandstone-based unit, sedimentary unit, presence of gypsum, okay? So gypsum is another evaporite, just like salt, just like halite or sylvite, and it's enriched with magnesium. Lithium really loves magnesium, so they're, when you look at some of the analysis here, 50.8 meters with 127 ppm lithium in those rocks, well, they're definitely more enriched than the bottom rocks. But we're not looking for lithium in the rocks. We're looking for lithium in the brine. So what the lower rocks, the pink unit, suggests, since there's no lithium in the rocks, where is that lithium? Is it in the fluid? Hopefully. Hopefully there's, given all the salt that the evaporate sequence in the area, just like the salars in South America, it's the exact same way all of this would have formed. We could have imagined that there would have been layers of lithium salt also deposited once all the water evaporated. And then throughout time, more water has come in, and those lithium sediments would have just been, the lithium would have been incorporated in with the water and just stays there. So hopefully that's what we're seeing. Hopefully that's what all of this indicates, that there's no lithium in the rocks at the lowermost sequence because it's all in the brine. And if you have that different rock types that we're seeing here, does that create some sort of boundary and creates like a chemical trap? So if you think of water and oil, what if the blue layer here is all oil and the water layer is all, well, the pink layer is all the water? Well, you're not going to mix the two. It's going to create that trap that the water is going to stay down in the bottom, the oil is going to stay on the top, and they're not going to want to mix. So do we have a similar situation like that? If we do, that could really concentrate lithium within this basalmost unit. And I'm not saying there's no lithium brine within that blue unit either. 127 ppm, I don't know if that's concentrated in these rocks or not. We don't have a background to go off. So there could have been maybe 500 ppm lithium in the rocks to start with, and you've scavenged 350 ppm. That's the type of idea we're looking at here. And if there's a saltier brine, well, we see this in nature where you get no salt floating on top of salt water, and it's very common. So fresh water with no salt is lighter than salt water, which will sink to the bottom. So the more briny your water, the heavier it is, and the further down it will go. So do we have that at SourceRock? We will hopefully get there very soon. We have the permit in place, all the compilations going, but we're confident we know where we want to drill, and we really want to get that proof of concept drill hole complete before the end of the year. Looks very exciting. And we will continue to work with the communities. Original feedback has already sounded very positive. So now we're just waiting for additional consultation when we can get out and visit each of the communities and discuss in person. This represents a very exciting time for the company and for our shareholders. We've got a market cap less than 5 million. If we're right with this thesis, and you look at a lot of these other lithium plays, even lithium brine plays, like these are over 100 million market cap companies. Do we have that potential to be a 20 bagger at today's prices? I think that's definitely viable. So we'll do our best. We are doing our best to really push this forward. And we think that everything is there. We think that all the characteristics that are needed to have lithium in a brine are there. It's just a matter of being able to put that drill hole down. If you want to stay up to date about SourceRock, please subscribe to our newsletter via our website. The information is there. Just give your email and you can be part of our email list. As per usual, we are part of the org group of companies. Great assets, great teams, great group in its entirety. Plenty of shareholder return over the past 12 to 24 months. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Check out our YouTube channel for the org group. Yeah, and you like educational videos, you want to learn things, check out some of our videos. Very successful companies with very successful people telling you their stories. Please feel free to contact us, info@metalenergy.ca, myself directly, jsykes@orggroup.ca. Visit our website. And more importantly, yeah, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, org group. Show us your support. I'm very, very happy that you watched this video. We think SourceRock is amazing. We think there's tons of potential here. We just have to drill to find out. And that's all it's going to take. One drill hole tells us the story. Thank you.